Well, hello, everybody, and happy Sunday. Welcome to the 70th episode of Stories of Service, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. And I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And welcome back, everyone. I know I wasn't on the show last week. I was on a very good ski trip, but now I'm back here today, back in the seat and out to do another podcast. So I'm just very happy to see you guys and have an amazing guest that I cannot wait to bring to you, Marissa Martin. Marissa, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, I am super excited to interview you. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio. If you guys are joining us on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also for those of you who will be joining this later through audio, I'll make sure I read all the comments in. And please consider following me on my socials as well. I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So, as I said, Marissa Martin is my guest today. She resides near my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and she currently works as a real estate agent. And today's show is not going to just be about the real estate industry. We're also going to talk about a few years ago what she experienced, which was one of the worst tragedies that could happen to a family member. And that is after a successful career in the Army, her husband, he took his own life, and she was left to pick up the pieces and raise her two boys by herself. But how she did this and overcame incredible odds and became the warrior and the business leader she is today is what we're really going to center in on. She was born and raised in Dublin, Ohio, and graduated from Dublin Coffman. And she is basically what you would call a Columbus native. She attended the Ohio State University before meeting her husband, who joined the United States Army in 2015. After moving around due to the military, she and her two children currently reside in Hilliard, Ohio, her home, and she has been helping families find their perfect homes, as well as selling for top dollar for 5 years now. Starting her real estate journey in 2018 with new constructions homes and moving into resale real estate in 2019, she is a very well-rounded agent when it comes to both buying and selling all types of residential homes. And currently, she is working with my dear friend, Karen Mavis Home Team, which is in the top 5% team in the Columbus MLS. Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you. I'm super excited.
Well, I'm super excited to talk to you too. And we're going to first just start off with kind of give me a little bit about your childhood. Well, I know you're obviously from Columbus area, but a little bit about what it was like growing up, where you live, and kind of a sense of what that experience was like for you growing up being from the Midwest.
Yeah, I love being from the Midwest, Best West. And born and raised in Dublin. I went through all Dublin schools, played lacrosse growing up, loved that. I love where I'm from. I'm happy to be home. So it's super great.
What did you think when you were a kid and you were in school? Like, what did you think you were going to be doing as an adult?
I'm a veterinarian.
Interesting.
That's what I wanted to do. Typical childhood dream. So that
Right.
happened. I actually went to college. I started with athletic training. And then I switched to hospitality. I had 3 different majors. So I switched to hospitality management. My dad owned a restaurant chain here in Columbus. And so then I thought I wanted to do that and kind of stay in the restaurant business. Once I realized that's not what I wanted to do, I switched over to marketing, which is what I ultimately finished with. And then, which honestly, I'm super happy with because it helps my real estate business a lot that I know how to do all that. So yeah, and then here I am.
Wow. So, and I think you're right, because a lot of what real estate is it's knowing that industry, but then also knowing how to market yourself and how to sell a home, how to make a home look
Yeah.
presentable. So a lot of those skills actually, like you said, do carry over. And tell me a little bit about how you became a military spouse and you graduated from college and you got this marketing degree. Now what comes next?
So I actually met my husband when I was at Kent State. I started originally at Kent State, and my husband was at Akron at the time. And then when he decided to join the military is when I transferred to OSU. So he went into the military and we met, away, but we both are from Columbus. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. And then, once he joined the military, we pretty much got married and that was that.
How did you feel about moving around with him and living the life of a military spouse? Did that seem daunting to you?
At first it did. When we got married, I mean, I was only 21, he was 22, so we were very young when we got married. So I mean, I'll never forget when we first got married and I moved to North Carolina. Um, I moved there and literally a week later he left for a month of training. So I knew nobody, had no friends, went out and bought a dog while he didn't have his phone because that was my only friend at the time.
Right, right. Yeah, that's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah, I loved it. It gave me a lot of experiences that, a lot of people don't have. So I've met, my best friends in the world, and I'm lucky to have lived the life that we did.
And so, did you guys stay in one place while you were stationed in the military, or did you start after North Carolina? Did you start to move around and build your family?
So we were in North Carolina for 3.5 years. And then in 2018, we moved to Colorado Springs, and he was stationed at Fort Carson uh,
Okay.
then.
Yeah, and you said that he was in. I think you told me earlier in the show, or before the show started, that he was in infantry. Is that correct?
Yep, he
Okay.
was a Mortar Man, actually, so a different part of the infantry, uh,
Okay.
what he was doing.
Gotcha. And so you start to have your children, and then what happens next?
So we had our first son in 2016, and then our second son we had right after we moved to Colorado in 2019, like literally right after. And then ultimately, my husband passed in 2020. So my youngest, was only a year old when that happened.
When that happened, do you think that you were one of those people that you saw the signs, or did you think that there was something that there was like an environment around you that you thought that he needed help, or was it something that was very sudden?
It was very sudden. Nobody saw it coming. I would say, I mean, at this point, I had known my husband for about 9 years. And we had been together pretty much ever since we like laid eyes on each other. And he dealt with, depression and a lot of that stuff before he ever even joined the military. He deployed in 2017 to Afghanistan. And I truly believe, like, his mind never came back from that. And he dealt with a lot of PTSD
Mhm.
after that. So saying, I mean, there were signs, but
Right.
looking back,
Yeah, I feel like there's so much education about suicide and about how we should look for these signs and all these things. But when you talk to people who've experienced a family member or a loved one who's passed this way, I really do believe that there sometimes isn't really anything that you can do to
it was,
prevent somebody from doing this.
I mean, it's sad and it sucks that this is what I had to go through, but I truly believe it might have been a matter of when it was going to happen. And, it was unfortunate it happened when it did. And it was at the start of COVID. And there was just a lot going on at that time. And, but he dealt with it for a long time,
Mhm.
truly. So,
So
yeah.
how did you cope with this? Like, did you have a family support network around you? What were some of the ways in which you were able to walk through this type
I
of
had an amazing support system in Colorado at the time. All of our family, both mine and his, have resided in Ohio. So I was across the country when it happened. My parents flew out when it happened. I had a couple friends from Ohio that flew out when it happened, but ultimately, I really, really relied on the people I worked with at the time were, I mean, family. And I had, a few other friends that I can still to this day consider my family that really got me through that time.
and if this is too personal, but I'm just curious because you're the first person I've ever talked to that has gone through something like this. If and please only share what you're comfortable sharing. How did it happen?
With a gun.
Did you have to be the one to come home and find him?
So we were working through some things at the time. So we actually weren't living together. With PTSD, a lot of times people have really bad anger outbursts. And so at that time, we were trying to work on things within our own marriage that had kind of fallen south because of the PTSD. And we just weren't on the same page with something. So we actually were not living together at the time. The way that I found out is because of a text message that he had sent me. Um, it was pretty cryptic, but like I knew,
Mhm,
and I was the first one there, but I never actually saw anything.
mhm. Well, it sounds like you were very fortunate in that you had those people that were near you and that came out and just helped you and worked through something like this.
Yeah.
Um, and so did you not immediately, but like some weeks later then say, "Okay, I'm gonna move back to, Ohio now?"
Actually took me, 2 years.
Oh, wow.
On I moved back to Ohio May 3rd of last year, so almost 2 years to the day. He passed on May 6th, so 3 days before his 2 years is when I moved back to
So
Ohio.
what did you do during those 2 years?
Worked my butt off.
So this is where you start building the real estate,
Mhm.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
I had
remarkable.
successful business before that all happened. But I left my real estate team right after a couple months after he passed and built an individual business afterwards.
What was it about real estate that drew you to wanna do it?
When we moved to Colorado is when I got into real estate. And I actually was in an onboarding for a marketing job. And I get a call and I listen to this voicemail while I'm like literally filling out like my, W-9. And I get this phone call for a different job I had interviewed for, which was the new build company I worked for, that they wanted to bring me back for a second interview. And like prior to this, I worked at like Starbucks and I worked at David's Bridal and, all these like part-time jobs. I never really had this like career that I was doing. And when I got this phone call, I just was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I want to do. I want to do real estate. What the heck? So I ended up like literally like sliding my, papers. And I was like, by the way, I'm not doing this. And took the second interview, ultimately got a third and got hired with this new build company. And I was with them for a little less than a year. And the schedule just wasn't ideal to have a family. I worked, full time, 40 hours from Wednesday to Sunday. So my days off are Monday and Tuesday with two little kids and a husband. Like, I'm like, I never see my family. So,
Mhm.
um, Doug, my husband, actually signed me up for real estate school behind my back.
Wow.
He's like, you're going to do this instead.
Like he just knew that this
Yeah.
was your
'Cause
passion and
it was my thing, and I loved my job. It just the schedule just didn't line up with my life, and, but I mean, that this gives me a way to still do real estate. I still sell a bunch of new construction. I know that literally like the back of my hand with my eyes closed. So yeah, I praise to him for that.
wow. Interesting. Isn't it funny how people sometimes know what's better for you than what you know for yourself, and you just need that person to kind of push you in that direction, and
Yep.
that's remarkable. And so you were already into real estate, before he passed, and so you were building this up, and so then this very tragic thing happens, and instead of just quitting everything and drinking and turning to I mean, there's so many paths,
Yeah.
Marissa, that you could have taken after this happened.
Yeah, and
And
I'm transparent, and of course, it's very hard not to go down some of those roads, and I took some of those roads, and I don't deny that, and, I made mistakes that I have to live with, but ultimately it brought me to where I am today. So I leaned on a lot of the people that I'm very grateful for, and I was able to take time off while people picked my business up for me and kept it going, so that I could have that time to be with my family and my kids, and kind of get all of us through that time together. So I was very grateful for the team that I was on at that time, because I mean, without them, honestly, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, you had good people on your path who took care of you, and you know, it's just so amazing to hear stories like that. And
Yeah,
you know, my friend Heidi, she's just said, you mentioned your hubby being a mortarman. Certainly, jobs have more potential for traumatic brain injuries, which can also amplify the effects of PTSD. And then she also puts in the comments here on LinkedIn, these resources are helpful for caregivers to help them recognize the signs.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did at the time that you started going back into your business, you had that time away with your family and you're in the grieving process. How did you approach your job differently and your work differently in your life? Like, what changed after that?
I mean, everything changed.
Yeah.
Um, it was, especially after taking time off. I think when I first started to get back into it, like, I just mentally, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like, pick up where I left off, but like, can't do that. Like, I literally became a single mom overnight, and
Right.
I now have to deal with that aspect of life and learning how to be a single mom, to two kids, and also running a very successful full-time business. And it was very, very, very difficult. I ended up leaving my team, and I actually ended up going into being a solo agent. So I was working for myself, and I ended up switching companies and all this stuff. But I mean, it was a lot at once. And what I thought I was just going to like jump right back into, that did not happen at
Right.
all.
So what influenced your decision to 2 years later to say, okay, I'm going to leave? And you were in Colorado at the time, right? I'm gonna leave Colorado and now I'm gonna make my way back home. Was that so you could be closer to your families?
To both of our families, and
Mhm.
my kids are very, very close with both sides of the family. So, truthfully, I mean, I found myself kind of like, my kids were with babysitters a lot, and I hate to say that, but I mean, our job is very, very demanding.
Sure.
Um, we're I work literally, I say 24/7, like, it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time, and, and on weekends and nights and all of this. So I just found my kids being with babysitters a lot, and I didn't love that. So I felt like if they're gonna be with babysitters, I'd rather them be with their
Oh,
grandparents.
yeah, of
You know,
course.
so it helps me, first of all, I mean, it helps me a lot, but it was ultimately for them. It was a very, very hard, I built a very, very big and successful business in Colorado, and it was a huge decision to leave that. But ultimately, I mean, I had to do what was best for my children, and that was bringing them closer to family.
Right. Absolutely, and I think that that was a wise decision based on what you're saying because now they have that opportunity to have that consistent interaction with both sides of the family, and I think that's incredibly important. And so as you oh, this is a good question Joy's asking, as you went through this grieving process, and I should have asked this earlier, did you ever see the therapist, or what
Mhm.
did you do to process?
I did see a therapist. I loved him. I ended up in therapy twice a week, and I mean, those were the best 2 hours of the week every week. I never missed. I like swear
Mhm.
by therapy. I think everybody should have it.
Yeah, for sure.
Grieving or not, I think it's a great way to just process things. But I was very, very lucky to be put in contact with the therapist that I had at the time in Colorado. And I mean, I still am in touch with him when I need to be, but currently looking for a new therapist in Ohio, because I will never get out of therapy.
I love it. I love it. It's so true. I mean, these resources, especially for those of us like in the military, I mean, they're 100% free.
Yeah,
And and I always say too, even if you don't have health insurance and you can't afford therapy, you can still go to support groups. There
yes.
are for
There's so
and
many options for people that can't afford it or don't have insurance or there's so many ways to still get help like that.
Mhm.
So I am a full believer in therapy. I love it. I think, as I said, everybody should have it.
Right. And I mean, it's a place where you can, I feel, talk about your problems in a way where you're not burdening your friends. You're not, and it's just one of those places where you can really go and process some things that you really need to get off your chest and you need to work through with somebody who is
And
used to hearing these stories from so many other people and can tell you what works
yeah,
and tell you that.
an outside, unbiased opinion, I think, is a major thing.
Absolutely. Heidi says, and this is in regards to being close to family. She says she's been working full time her whole life, and their kids are now in their late teens. My mother in law came on many occasions for many weeks, and this deepened their relationship with her and mine. Time with supportive family is a good thing, and that's what kids notice is the time we do have.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. So, what are some of the? This is something I'm a little curious about. What are some of the ways that you've seen your boys change as they've been closer to family versus when you lived in Colorado?
Oh my gosh, they're like whole new kids.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's been great, and especially because they kinda lost that father. I mean, they did lose their father figure, so coming home and I have a brother and my husband has 2 brothers, so they have, their uncles now and that are close and, my dad and my husband and my father-in-law, so they have that, like, male figure back into their lives, and I mean, it's a world of difference. They're not as aggressive, they listen better, like, they still fight, they're boys, but
Right, right.
so
Oh, that's great.
it's been a wonderful change, and I'm very happy I made the decision to move home.
So, how soon after you came home did you start working with Karen?
So I moved home in May. I got licensed in Ohio in June. I stayed with the company I was with in Colorado, which was Coldwell Banker. So I had signed on with them. Um, and then I kind of started to maybe like take another route in my life. And then I was like, maybe not. So I signed on with Karen in November. So I've been with Karen for 2 months.
That's amazing. And tell me a little bit now that you've been in the real estate industry for a few years and now we'll kind of get into sort of the business side of buying a home. Tell me, I'm looking for a house and I'm like, I can do this on my own. I don't need an agent, right? Why should I hire an agent?
So why you should hire an agent is, I mean, we're the professionals. We have so much training on this and we know what we're doing. And buying a home it can be a very daunting process and we don't want it to be. So, my goal is to always take that stress off of you as the buyer. Like I want you to have fun. I want you to find your house and be as stress-free as possible. To do that by yourself, like it's not going to happen. Like, do you want to go read 14 pages of a contract it's mumbo
Don't
jumbo?
understand.
Like,
Or the laws in every state for
yeah,
home
they're
buying
different.
vary.
It's definitely, and especially as a buyer, 99% of the time, the seller's paying my commission. You're not even paying. Like my services are almost free to you.
Mhm.
So, I mean, why wouldn't you work with an agent?
What do you think are some of the characteristics of an agent who knows their job? Like, what are some of the traits that you find are some of the top things that you would say characterize a good agent?
I think keeping up with the market is extremely important. There's a lot of agents, especially in the last couple years since COVID happened, our market's changed a lot. And as they say, houses sold themselves. Um, they don't do that anymore. So, an agent that really truly, like, I mean, knows what they're doing, is keeping up and is looking at the MLS, daily to keep up with the market, and knows the interest rates, knows what's going on in the mortgage world. All of that
Mhm.
stuff is really important. And even though mortgages is not my job, it's not my job to tell you what's, going on with them. But to have an agent that is well-rounded and, has that knowledge to point you in the right direction, I think is really, really important. Not all agents, know to keep up with that stuff.
Right, right. And do you think the best type of buyer or seller to work with is somebody who does also their homework as well? Um,
Yes. Yes, please do your homework.
yes.
I I
Yeah,
know that
there's a lot of people.
inside
Oh,
and
go
out.
ahead.
I mean, every client that we work with is different, and every client has their own needs and their own wants and, their own knowledge. And, like, please do your homework, and do your homework on the agents that you're interviewing. Don't just like hire your best friend's cousin because they're a realtor. Like, do your research, interview multiple agents, find the one you click with, and find the one that, like, you feel comfortable with. So the biggest purchase you're ever going to make it right.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think that a lot of times when people are going with an agent, they don't know what to ask. They don't know what to look for. There's so much to this, like with the loans,
Mm,
people with, like you said, the titling. I mean, I just bought a home for the first time and I'm, 46 2 years ago, and I had no idea what was involved. It was such a crazy process. And then even once we got the home, we were in a buyer beware state and we had this leak and had to figure out navigate that process about whether or not it was what's called active concealment or not. And I just had no idea that there's so much involved when the inspection process. I mean, everything that goes into this decision is just so important to get right.
it is. It is, and that's the key in having an agent that knows what they're doing. Because
Mhm.
I'm not a home inspector, but I know what to look for when I walk through a home.
Mhm.
So if I can point, certain things out before, my buyers ever even get to that stage, like, my goal is to protect my buyer. That's my job. Or to
Mhm.
protect my seller. That's my job. And I don't ever want to rush somebody into a house that, like, it's not about the commission. Like, it's a very emotional and large purchase for so many people, and it's important to get it right.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And it's certainly something that, like, you just have no idea what is involved until you do it. And then once you do it, you're like, wow. And it's like so volatile where you could make a lot of money from the
Yeah,
sale or break even or even lose money sometimes.
yeah.
So it's important to like you say, do your homework and to be researched too as a buyer or seller, I think, and meet your agent halfway, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because like you said, you get calls all hours of the night. You get probably, I'm sure, some very needy clients
Yeah,
who
that's okay though. But
right, but I'm
I built my business working with military clients. And the difference with that compared to, the market I'm in right now is a lot different, because there's not a lot of military in Columbus. Mainly have the reserves and, National Guard, but we don't have active duty that's moving every 2 to 3 years. So when when working with a military client, like I was in Colorado, you have to be very, very mindful of things like you just said. Like, we are moving in 2 years. Like, I don't want my clients to lose money.
mhm,
So, knowing the market and knowing the neighborhoods that they're purchasing in is extremely, extremely important, because turning around in 2 years, like we've seen, the market has gone down a lot in, the last 6 to 9 months. And with interest rates going up. And, I don't want my clients to lose money. That's going to come back.
mhm.
I don't want that either.
Right. No, for sure.
And
Yeah.
So knowing, things can happen, not buying the most expensive home in the neighborhood, that's a big thing, especially when you're working with a client that could move in a couple of years. That's not going to hold on to something long term.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. And I think sometimes people just don't think about those things when they're going into it. I know for me, I didn't anticipate that I'd be stationed in the United Kingdom
Right.
to a year, get orders a year later that said I was going to move overseas, and we had to make a decision whether or not we were going to hold on to our home
Yep.
or sell it. And like you said, the market went down so drastically, and so we ended up turning our home into an Airbnb, and it's at a nice place now where I think it breaks even maybe, but it was the best decision for what our needs were. Um, but yeah, you just military clients, our lives are so, as you know, unpredictable. So you
Yes.
really just never know. So you have a whole nother kind of clientele now, I imagine.
Yes, I do. I've worked with 0 military currently in Ohio.
Is there a particular type of home that you prefer, or neighborhood, or do you have any sort of a specialty or a niche?
Um, I would say new construction is probably my niche because that's how I got into real estate. When I started working for the company I worked for in Colorado, I was a sales assistant for that company, but I love to learn. So like when I am doing something, like I go full in. I followed our superintendent around for like a week, like a little puppy dog. Like, and I was like, what's this? What's this? Like everything he did, I was like, I have to know.
Mhm.
So like new construction, I know like literally like the back of my hand. So that is one that I love, and I love getting to help my clients pick out their finishes and all that. I actually went to interior design school too. So that's like I love doing that stuff.
I love it. You're just like so into your job, and it's so neat to talk to somebody who loves what they do. Got a few questions in here. Joy just says, we bought our home without an agent. Big mistake. After selling my mother's home, I always use an agent. Do you network with anyone in Washington State?
I sure do. I have great referral connections in Washington State. So definitely feel free to reach out. And I'd love to hook you guys up with somebody anywhere in the United States. I have connections.
Awesome. And I did link at the bottom of the show notes to Marissa's website. So you can just go on there and reach out to her there. And then my friend Molly just asked, what company did you work for in Colorado?
So I was with a couple. So I started with Keller Williams. I helped start a team when I first got into real estate. Our first team meeting was actually the day my son was born, so I missed it. And so I started with Keller Williams. I was with them for almost 2 years, and then I switched to Coldwell Banker. I was with them for almost 2 years as well.
And then she also just added, if you know of anybody with connections in
I do. I have a great one in Michigan.
So definitely for those of you. And then she also wants to know, did you ever work with Century Complete?
I did not.
Okay.
Nope. I'm currently with Next Home Experience, which is in Columbus. They are nationwide though, so still a bigger company as well, but I'm very, very happy with my company now.
Yeah, we have a couple people on here that are actually from Ohio. James Clark, he's somebody I know through military circles too. So it's kind of full circle. Sometimes when I meet people and they're from Ohio, it doesn't happen very often.
Oh, especially not in the military.
No, it was not something like I grew up thinking I was going to join the service. And I'm sure, as you were growing up, you didn't think you were going to have a life affiliated with the military.
Just me.
Yes. So, what would you say are some of the trends that you're seeing in real estate? Like, what are the hot things that are coming down the pike in your line of work?
When you say trends, what do you mean?
I mean, like, what do you think are some of the ways in which sellers and buyers, like you guys, are optimizing the business? I know that, like, when I bought a home, we were able to do just practically everything electronically. I signed all the PDFs electronically. The only time, and it was during COVID, the only time we had any paperwork or face to face was, I think, the day I signed the
Closing
mortgage, the closing rather. Yeah, the closing documents. And even then we had to do it from like in our cars, couldn't go inside offices.
Oh my gosh, that was like crazy times. Yes, they had like parking lot closings where they would like put tents out and like still wear your mask outside and like sign at like a little tiny table under this tent in the parking lot. Oh man, COVID was crazy times in real estate.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is electronic, which is amazing because especially working with military. I mean, I would have clients in Germany or in Korea or in Japan, PCSing and technology these days is amazing because I could FaceTime tour and video for them and most of my clients. But I sold so many houses without even meeting my clients first. I
Wow.
would meet them at the closing table, or sometimes that you can close remotely, so they would close. I had a client close from Honduras once, and
Wow.
but their house is, I hold their keys and their house is ready when they get there. So I was very fortunate to be able to do a lot of the things that I was able to do working with military. I have like a completely different side of the business of like knowledge to do that kind of stuff and really like honing in on video skills. And videos is definitely something now that a lot more people are doing agent wise. So videos get 10 times the exposure than just photos do. So doing video home tours when you're selling a home, like make sure your agent's doing that. It's going to sell your home faster.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. We did the same thing. I mean, even as we were looking for places to rent out here in the UK, our agent would come individually to the homes and walk us through on her phone,
Yep.
what the home looked like. And that was how we signed all of our paperwork, everything before we moved out here. So that's definitely the plus side of doing it. The downside is, of course, if you're not there in person and there's something major in the inspection or something that you can't physically see or check, it
Yeah.
makes it a little bit more difficult. But
Well, and that's why I say too, like, again, like knowing your agent and, interviewing them and having an agent that knows what they're doing is very important. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I can't tell you how many times I've like walked through a house and I'm like, okay, but look at this water stain. That's because it's like, if my client's not there, they're going to hold me accountable for that. If
Mhm.
a water stain comes up in the inspection and they're like, well, why didn't you tell me that?
Right.
So, like, it's very, very, very important to have an agent that knows what they're doing, knows what to look for in those type of situations.
Yeah. And Heidi says the big thing about a home is also the neighborhood and the noise. Would you agree?
Yes, I would.
Um, what would you say in within your industry are probably like the most okay, what are the biggest challenges and then what are the biggest I guess most rewarding parts of it?
Okay, we'll start with the biggest challenges. Um, I would say the biggest challenges I've come across, and they're like fun challenges, I would say. Probably. Like it's like you get this client, or it's like this is my budget, but these are all my wants. And I'm like, okay, well, hold on, we gotta dive for a second. Because that's gonna happen, but still like finding them, something that's gonna work. I love working with first time home buyers. I love like hand holding through the process. So working with first time home buyers, it's like I get to explain to them, each and every little tiny thing. And I love that. And watching them get to close on their first home and it's a huge experience. And that's definitely, I mean, I've cried at closings. So I watch them get their keys and I'm like, okay, yay.
Well, because they're going to build all these memories,
Yeah,
and
and I love that. And I remember purchasing, our first home when we were in North Carolina and what an experience that was. And to give that to somebody else is like there's nothing matches that.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So you're really just like one of those people out there that just loves what they do, and just I mean, do you intend to probably just do this for the rest of your life? Like this is like now a lifelong thing for you?
It's my career. I will
Mhm.
never out of it, I'll probably venture into some different sides of real estate. But I mean, this is what I love, and I'm gonna do it for as long as I can.
What kind of advice would you give for people who, haven't really decided their passion? Like they haven't figured out what it is that, makes their heart sing. What would be your advice for those people?
Honestly, just you'll find it. Like it's gonna come. And like I said, I was working a bunch of part-time jobs, and like trust the process. Like it will come, and you will find something that you love, and don't settle. Don't
Mm,
settle to a job that
yeah.
you don't like.
Do you
So
think do you think your life would have been the same if you had just stayed with marketing or
no. Probably a lot less stressful, but
right.
but definitely not as rewarding.
Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to ask you about that we didn't cover. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or anything that I didn't touch upon?
I don't think so.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's like I don't get to talk to people who love what they do like you do very often, and it's really neat to kind of go into that because I think that we all have something that we can do really well, and when we figure out what that thing is
Yeah,
and can bring that to others, it is such a gift to
it
be
is.
able to do.
As they say, find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have that.
Yes, you are. And you're very, very blessed to have the family and the support structure around you. But I also believe that you are the person who exuberates that positive energy that draws those good people in your path, Marissa. I can just sense that about you just from this short conversation. So it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. Before I forget, for those who are listening by audio, where can people find you?
I am in Columbus, Ohio. My cell phone is 719-985-5669, and marissamartinhomes.com.
Awesome, Marissa. Well, thank you. We will meet backstage. I'm just going to go on full screen for a moment, but it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm so glad that Karen recommended
Thank
that we have
you.
this conversation.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I just want to thank you all for joining me today. I had such a blast last week on the ski trip. So thanks for all you who follow me on social media for following along. I probably will do an extended podcast, a solo one about some of the greater lessons that I took away from that experience because it definitely caused me to question a lot of things. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye now.